All right, Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, all right, first and foremost, we have to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem,
Bahashem.
Yahweh Shai,
Yahweh Shai.
Bahashem,
Bahashem.
Ruach Kadash.
Her.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who well and taught us His truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in the 1/3. This is your brother Salah.
Brother, yo, what's up?
All right. In today's lesson, we're gonna be responding to a brother's question. He goes by the brother DB. You could kind of see his profile pic on the sidebar, but not really because I'm not really trying to show him too well. But his main question was, he wanted to understand, the breakdown of Daniel chapter 8, verses 23 through 26 on down, and I kind of explained it to him. How it was talking about, how it's mainly talking about, Alexander, his four generals, Seleucus, Ptolemy, Cassander, and I can't and I can never really pronounce the last one, but those were the four main generals, and now them was Antiochus, who instilled these basically draconian measures, so like the Israelites, Jake he couldn't practice their laws and customs, and how that and how that directly links today, with with DJT or Caesar Nero, right? Right, without any further ado, we're gonna open up with Daniel chapter 8, starting at verse 21. Where it says, the goat, and it says here, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that was between his eyes is the first king, right? And this is speaking, and that he goat is referring to Alexander the Great, or Alexander of Macedon, right? Right, jumping back to Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. Therefore, the he goat waxed very great, and he was strong, and the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones for the four winds. That's talking about the he goat referring to Alexander the Great, and the four noble ones are his four generals, right? So if you and if you Google Alexander the Great, it's called the he goat. It'll explain to you that Alexander the Great is called the he goat because it was mentioned in the book of Daniel. And of course it talks about the prophecy of the Edomites taking over Greece, and then taking down Medo Persia. Which is prophesied in the scriptures. So going back to so jumping back down to Daniel to Daniel 8, starting at verse 22. It says here, now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of a nation, but not in his power, right? And it's talking about his four generals, and if you look up the four generals of Alexander, they was talking about Ptolemy, who seized control of Egypt. Cassander gained control of Greece and Macedon. Seleucus took control of the eastern part of the empire, which included Babylon, Persia, and Syria, and Licinius took control of Asia Minor. During that time, and these were his four successors, right? Right to to Alexander's kingdom. Right, and it was referring to not in his power. It's because Alexander has passed away. And they basically took these four generals basically took over in his stead, right? And from them, there's a bunch of infighting that happened. But continuing on at verse 23, it says here, and the latter time of their kingdom where the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding and dark sentences shall stand up, and that's talking about Antiochus Epiphany, which you'll find out that that Antiochus Epiphany was a Seleucid king. He came from the line of Seleucus, who persecuted the Judeans, or the southern kingdom Israelites. Right, and desecrated the second temple, which as you can read here, it sparked the Maccabean revolt, which you read in First and Second Maccabees. Right, right. All right, but but the main point what I was trying to explain, to to brother DB was was in 24 and 25 where he asked uh, where he asked and what was verse 25 talking about? Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power, right? So uh, so so really that was referring to verse 24 where it says there, and his power shall be mighty, but yeah, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy and the holy people, and through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper, and in his hand he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And that's and that's talking about Esau going back to his blessing the sword. How how he took over, right? The modern day sword. Is the gun. Is the gun, the firearm, the missile, the tank. The fire jet. Well, whatever Esau's technology is, in modern time, right? And what it means by it, it's not by his own power, right? You're thinking, doesn't Esau use and pilot this? But yeah, but you got to remember who blessed Esau with the sword, man. It was Isaac, man. That goes all the way back to the book of Genesis, man. If you have the spirit, Isaac was one of the incarnations of Yahweh Shai. So, all right, so let's get that. Genesis chapter 27, verse 38. Let's get this in the blue letter. All right, and Esau said unto his father, "Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And that's when Jacob got the blessing instead of Esau, because Esau sold his birthright. To Jacob. And of course Jacob took that blessing from Esau. Which was ordained by Yahweh Bashim Yashai, for Jacob to receive that blessing, because Esau verbally gave it away from him. He wasn't coerced to do so. He just gave it away, for some instant gratification, and for that that for that that undercooked meat, or red pottage or whatever, right? All right, so whereas so Isaac was like, Isaac basically gave him the blessing of the sword, right? Right, which again is ordained by Yahweh Bashim Ashai, because when you read in verse 39, it says here, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above, and by thy sword thou shalt live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break the yoke off thy neck. Right. So so it was prophesied that Esau is going to have the dominion, so meaning the rulership of the earth in the latter days, and that's where we are right now, man. Esau is basically on top, and he basically controls everything, man. Through the media, the food, the control of money, everything, man. From his blessing the sword, man. It was it was the Lord that gave it to him. He didn't rise up to power by his own will, because during the Dark Ages, right? When he was serving Jacob, when he's under captivity, right? Right, he was in the Caucasus Mountains, right? He was grunting, he was moaning, like a damn caveman. But then the Lord decided, after that 1,000 year period, right, that the Lord rose him up, around the end of between the 13 and the 1400s, right? Which is when the Renaissance hit. And and the Renaissance was basically the rebirth of Esau, the rebirth or the revival of the idea of the Greco-Roman Empire, which you 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 the image of the beast, which basically Daniel the eighth, the eighth chapter talks about, right? right, right, and 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 if you look down here, it's you know, all right, you know, and you know, and jumping back right here, it says here, and through his policy, he also causes craft to prosper. In his hand, he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, and he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And right, and basically, right, you know what's Esau doing right now, man? You know, because back then during the time of Antiochus, right, he basically made it illegal for uh yeah he yeah he yeah he he basically made it illegal for Jake, to practice his customs, like sacrifice, calling themselves Israelites, man. And Hellenize them, taught them the ways, of the the Greco-Roman culture, right? Worshiping their gods, practicing their ways, and that's when Jake, he became Hellenized, right? The whole book, the whole, all the, all the books in the Apocrypha, right? Right, speak of Jake being Hellenized. That's what the scriptures, talk about when, when it was referring to that's what that one scripture where it says, there's neither Greek nor Jew. Let's get that. There is neither Greek no Jew. Well, that's what it talks about in the book of Galatians when it says, there's neither Jew nor Greek. That Greek is referring, to the Hellenized Israelites. Right, because the ones that knew that they were Israelites, called the the Hellenized Israelites, the uncircumcised, they were born outside Jerusalem, they were practicing the laws and customs, and this is and this is who Yahushua was mostly preaching to. Were these Hellenized Israelites, to basically repent and come back into the understanding, right, through faith, right, basically, believing on the Yahweh Shai, keeping the laws and customs, to the best of your ability. Although we know the laws aren't, don't save them, but it's, but they basically, believe in the testimony of Yahweh Shai. So, so yeah, so basically, right, I was explaining to to the brother, to the brother DB that that he knows that yeah, that I was explaining to the brother DB that basically although this is originally referring to to Antiochus, Epiphany, right? You can also refer this to Caesar Nero, or DJT 47. Because because he's basically doing the same thing, right? And still in draconian measures, right? Sending out ICE in the National Guards, to round up Jake, to deport them or detain them, right? Or or put them on them airships, chain them up and then dump them in the middle of the ocean, man. Man, it's the same thing, right? Right. It's he, he's that fierce king or that cruel lord, referred to in the book of Isaiah 19, verse 4, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Isaiah 19, verse 4, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. the Lord Sabaoth, meaning his armies. Nice. I'll explain that to him, right? But then he asked, yeah, because I was thinking about, about Nero, right, or Trump, but we know that the USA will be destroyed by nuclear missiles. So he was wondering, well, isn't that by human power? And but what he doesn't understand is the Lord Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, controlling the minds of these people, right? It's the fact that no one has free will, right? And we can basically prove with bear, bear with me one moment. Because I explained it to him very, very specifically. Well, well, yeah. So basically, right? No one has free will because that goes all the way back to to the book of Genesis 27. When Esau blessed, when Isaac blessed Esau, with the blessing of the sword, right? Right, and then Isaac basically prophesies that Esau will have the dominion, meaning what? It was in the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, to ultimately raise up Esau at the end, just to take him down, right, right, in the book of Daniel, it basically states, actually, let's get this in the blue letter, Daniel 4, verse 17. And it says here, this is the matter by the decree of the watchers, and to the man by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to it whomever he will, and set it up over the basis of men, right, right, and this, and this was prophesied, Esau, Edom getting that dominion in these last days, right? Right, because we know that because we know the basis of men is referring to Esau. They were the children of fools. Yeah, Job chapter 30 verse 8. Yeah, they were the children of fools. They were the children of fools. Children of base men. They were viler than the earth, right? Right, and we know this is speaking of Esau, right? Right, because Job verse 1 it says here, but now they are younger than I had me in derision, whose fathers I'll just say that I've set with the dogs of my flock, because yeah, man, Esau, man, he's into that fucking bestiality, sleeping with animals, dogs, horses, and whatnot. So, and if you read further down, man, it says here to dwell in the clefts and the valleys and the caves and of the earth and in the rocks among the bushes they braid. They were galled. They in the bushes they braid under their nose. They were gathered together. Right. And we know it's and we know this is referring to Esau Edom because when you jump into the book of Obadiah, man, and we know Esau's natural habitat is Mount Seir or modern day Petra, which 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 um which which is Esau's which is Esau Edom's original homeland, right? That's why I see these modern skyscrapers, or the skyline is it basically resembles a mountain range, and in the windows and in the buildings resembles those holes or those balconies in the rocks. So jumping to Obadiah. Yeah, we can start Obadiah chapter 1, verse 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai, concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai, an ambassador said among the heathen, arise ye and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashim El Shai. And yeah, and right, that's basically what you're seeing right now, man. We're at the time, man. That we are eventually seeing, the collapse of Esau, Edom, man, and ultimately, man, his ultimate downfall is going to be his own blessing, the sword, which is going to be the ICBM nuclear missiles, man, which is going to be shot at Babylon once he rolls out, with that digital ID, that MOTB, micro C hip, right? That MARK, to the beast, right? Right. So right. So right. So Esau, man, he doesn't have much time, man, and to rule. But that's that that's pretty much what I have out. Oh, and one more thing to substantiate the point, where he says, this isn't by human power. It's the fact that the Lord Yahweh Bashim I put the spirit on these people. To create to create these nuclear missiles, man. And then to fire them. So we're gonna bring out. Yeah, I have made this. All right, and this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 16. It says here, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and I bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy, right? And that and we know that ultimate waster is gonna be them ICBM nuclear missiles, to destroy Esau's kingdom, right? Right, so and this is how we know that that this is all the will of the Al Bashim Al Shai, man. Man, and one final precept to substantiate that point. How can a man go? All right, Book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 24. Man's goings are of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. How can a man then understand his own way? And we don't, because we don't have free will. Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, man. He's the one that directs our steps, man. As the scripture says, man. No one has free will. The Lord has set up people. Oh, to be prophets. To be the elect. People to hear this word, people be delivered, and he set up the wicked, man, set up Esau, these wicked elites, man, the 2/3, the rebels, man, and these heathens, to ultimately get destroyed, man, and the elite of those heathens, to ultimately go into captivity, right? Right, because again, man, this is all of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is doing, man, this isn't our doing. This isn't our of our own doing, man. The Lord did this, to show us, man. Yeah, good from evil. What's it like to live in an evil rulership, and soon, man, once Yahushua comes back, man, we gonna see a righteous rulership being established, man. The kingdom of earth as it is in heaven, man. As it says in the Lord's prayer, man. Once Babylon gets nuked, once the elect gets their new spiritual bodies, Lord willing that we be a part of the elect, and And then coming down, and taking down all these heathens, right, and putting them into captivity. So so with that, man, we're gonna end off the lesson right there. Hope this lesson's been edifying. Diakim and Yufil Akwath. With that, like to say, call halayim la, abanawa, Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba'ashem,
Ba'ashem,
Yahushai,
Yahushai,
Ba'ashem,
Ba'ashem,
Rakah Kadash.
Rakakadash.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone who will unto us this truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in 1/3, is your brother Salah.
What's up?
All right, Brother Barak, and with that, we have to say shalom.